In this week's episode, we discuss biohacking breakthroughs from Dave Asprey's conference in Texas, the rise of sleep supplements for deeper recovery and cognitive health, Magnesium's AI health coach designed with human empathy, Airbnb's bold expansion into the global health and wellness market, Superhuman's mission to lead total identity transformation through their new fitness app, and how Aldi's viral reformer is turning a budget supermarket into a Pilates disruptor. Welcome to this week's episode of L.I.F.T.S, where we cover the latest industry trends and stories. Today, I'm here with my co-host, Mo. Mo, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. I'm excited for us to have this second week in a row of filming from, let's just call it our studio, but it's really our office. I think you're in a much better location than I am. I have not been on the road, so I'm kind of enjoying just being present, being at home, and working through a lot of catch-up work. And we're also joined this week by Debra Strougo, who might be, Matthew, the most frequent guest on L.I.F.T. I think she definitely was on the first episode. She's been on a couple others, but we haven't had you on in a couple of months, so it's good to have you back.
We had a last-minute impromptu get together at HFA in a back room, but other than that, that's true.
It doesn't sound like what it is. It actually was a really good episode. That was a good episode.
Yeah, we were all in sequence. So it was an episode from Always Be Ready to be on the L.I.F.T.S podcast. But yes, here we are. Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure to be with you guys.
Well, I was going to start with, last week we were talking about a few of these sort of health hacks that we got into, and I was mentioning this nitric oxide supplement that I've been testing, which apparently plays a vital role in vascular health, immunity, and also potentially it's meant to help you improve sleeping. And I've been trying it for a few weeks, and I've been seeing kind of mixed results. Sometimes I have really good sleep, and sometimes I don't. So I'm not totally convinced on how successful it is for me, even though as I was looking into it, I've seen some interesting research on PubMed. But then at the weekend, I bumped into Debra. We spent some time together on Sunday, and Debra went to, I guess, the sort of event of events when it comes to biohacking, the Dave Asprey Biohacking Summit in Texas. And so I was curious to see Debra, when I'm talking about sleep and some of these new health hacks, what was a big takeaway from the event that you were at last week that you're considering implementing?
Well, it's interesting, Matthew. The biohacking conference was very, very exciting for me. It's a lot of biohackers. It's a pretty niche group of people, and it makes some of what we're doing in the wellness industry look very, very general, if you could say, watered down, right? There are things going on in the wellness industry that are extremely innovative, but when you look at it from the eyes of the biohacking conference, it's just innovation on crack, if you will. So I think I spent a lot of time kind of just absorbing all the technologies that were there, whether they were actual, technologies like the PEMF or the biocharger, which is this amazing unit that you sit around that could do mold detox in 4 weeks, just for all different types of cognitive related issues or anxiety or skin issues. All of these technologies, and then of course everything in the world of supplements and nutrition and sleep and gut health and probiotics, all of that. So there's so many different things that you could accumulate or you could use or consume. But it's funny that you were bringing up the nitric oxide, Matthew, because there's these supplements we could take, and obviously people are very tuned into the supplement world these days. But there are also very, very simple things like these. Do you guys know what I'm holding up right now? Beets. Okay. So I think I kind of want to know, are you eating beets also, Matthew, or are you just taking supplements?
Well, I have, and I know this whole beet thing's been around for a while. Then there was a company that just had the beetroot, which apparently is one of the best sources
of
nitric oxide. I think it's like a little purple bottle thing that they sell in Whole Foods. So yeah, I'm not taking it at the moment. I have tried it, and I probably need to become more educated on beets and nitric oxide, because there seems to be a lot of benefits with including that in your diet. And I do like beetroot, as they call it in England.
Yeah. And you and I actually bumped into each other without planning it at the Natural Food Expo one year, if you remember. And I was always amazed because Super Beets is another one of those brands that always had a massive setup at a Natural Food Expo, which costs quite a bit of money. And their product isn't even real beets. It was like the little beet chews. They're like these teeny tiny beet chews, but they have a massive setup at Natural Food Expo. So I definitely think people are consuming nitric oxide for whatever benefits beyond sleep, I would imagine as well. I don't really know.
Well,
No,
recently, one of my friends went to this company called Pillar Performance. It's a company that I haven't really heard about before, and we all get these samples sent to us, and I'll go through it because typically it's another protein or it's another creatine or whatever. But this one was what they call a triple magnesium formula. But I've been taking it for probably the last 45 days, and including when I travel, and correlating it with my sleep scores with Aura. And of course, that is also all over the place when you're traveling. And there's other factors that contribute to sleep, like alcohol, your last meal, and exercise, and all the things. But I have to say that I've been tagging Aura, like tagging magnesium when I'm taking it, and my Aura sleep is like 2 to 3 points better because of it. And I do feel I wake up a lot more refreshed. I'm getting more deep sleep as a result of it. So I know magnesium too has been around for a long time for like calming you down and slowing you down, like more of a calming agent. But I've never really tried it for sleep. I did recall that a couple of decades ago, and Matthew, you probably and Deborah remember this, but in the 2000s and the 90s, there's a product called ZMA, which is, I think, zinc,
I still take it.
magnesium, and aspartate. Yeah, I used to take it as well, right when I started working out. And I mean, I remember EAS back in the day had one, and supposedly when you combined the three, it was the most effective. So some of these things that we've seen and we might have taken a couple of decades ago are coming back into fashion now. I think last week we spoke about the rise of creatine all of a sudden, right? Creatine's been around in our world for decades, and now they're finding all to the uses of creatine. And most interestingly, it is being used by women a lot now too, whereas before it was kind of the thing that the guys did. But I'm always trying to improve my sleep because I feel like if you could get your sleep dictates the rest of your day, your workout, your mood, your mornings, your evenings. So I think I do think that there's a lot to unpack in terms of sleep biohacking and sleep supplementation.
Yeah, and Matthew, you also asked about just in general supplements and what I'm taking or what I got tapped into. It was very interesting. The group from STEM Regen was a big sponsor of this show, and they're very focused in on stem cells, and it's a stem cell supplement. And I'm getting more tapped into this. You guys probably know far more about it than I do, but just generally, stem cell treatments are really helpful for a lot of people. And this is a supplement that helps you kind of kill the noise of what's surrounding your stem cells so that you can repair your body and repair your system better. And so I actually bought the whole supplement line, and I'll let you guys know if it makes a revolutionary difference for me or not in, I don't know, 30, 60, 90 days. But it's a really interesting concept that, at the end of the day, it's really about all of our cells working in the best way that they possibly can. And how do you achieve that?
I'll have to get that link and have a look at that one myself. Well, look, let's move on to the first story today, which is about Magnesium, human-centered AI health coach, and it says AI meets humanity. It seems as though this is some kind of the world's first human-centered AI coach, revolutionizing health performance. And the bit that seems to be playing on in the press releases is this AI coaching platform uniquely designed with human empathy. And doing a little bit of research on this, it seems as though that there's a bunch of marketing AI products that are also trying to incorporate this sort of empathy within the experience. And it's not something I'd heard anything about or seen anything about until I'd sort of read about this particular company, Magnesium. So I guess my first question to our sort of tech expert, Mo, is what is this AI human empathy, and what do you know about the this Magnesium product?
It's a new product, and actually, until Matthew, you sent it to me, I was not aware of it. So thank you again. You're always up on the AI kind of news before me, but I did have a chance to look into it. I don't know. Everyone uses the word revolutionary, and I feel like it's back in the day, disruption or being disruptive was a big word about 10 years ago. That was really popular. I feel like revolutionary AI is now what's popular too. Um, but in terms of AI and empathy, and you've even seen this from ChatGPT. You could go ahead and prompt ChatGPT to say, "I want this prompt to sound exciting. I want this, prompt to have more empathy in it." So that's kind of what they're doing here. The bigger concern for me is, and I did a post on this recently on LinkedIn around how do we know what the AI is recommending to you, right? So in other words, OpenAI launched something called Health Bench a couple of weeks ago. And essentially what that is that it allows hospitals, pharmaceutical companies, companies in healthcare to take whatever AI model they're looking at and put it through Health Bench. And then Health Bench will then tell you, is it is the engine driving the AI coming back from research back or evidence back sources? That's the key thing here. So right now we're seeing a lot of these AI companies come up with new tools, new integrations, but what is the underlying technology that's ultimately driving the recommendation? And from reading the press release and what I could find, there's not enough in there. Look, I think we're going to see a lot of funding going to AI today, but ultimately, and that is very normal in the innovation curve with an emerging and new industry. So there's a lot of frothiness around it. But I'm typically on something like this going to take the wait and see approach.
Deb, I know you, after our chat at the weekend, you seem to kind of have an intimate relationship with your ChatGPT. So, like, what are your thoughts on kind of where this whole thing is going, and having almost like a personal, empathetic wellness coach that's telling you what to do?
That's a funny comment, Matthew. I do. I love ChatGPT. I think, what it sounds like Mo is saying is that you have to question the messenger, right? The facts behind the messenger. And I agree with that, from a personal standpoint as well, right? So if you have a trainer or ChatGPT as your trainer, you still need to know the qualifications and what's being inputted and where this is all coming from. So I am trusting ChatGPT a bit, just as I would trust a professional. Until you tell me that I shouldn't trust ChatGPT, I'm trusting ChatGPT, and sometimes I ask it to try again because it's not working exactly right. But I do love the points about the empathy and the personalization, and I do think that if you're using any of these things, you need to have that tone sorted out and the personal elements added to the conversation. So I'm glad to see that AI is really taking that on in its business cases.
One of the things, I guess, that kind of links into this in a slightly different way, but if you look at a lot of the popular apps that are out there, whether it's Uber, which my guess is using AI to sort of learn a lot about you, and Uber Eats, and that kind of links into the next story, which is also Airbnb, where I guess they sort of learn a little bit about your habits and make sort of recommendations. And so on a very big level, we've got Airbnb, which is also coming into this wellness space, where they're talking about expanding into health, fitness, and wellness, making health-focused experiences accessible worldwide. And I suppose in the same way where you're getting some of these fitness apps that are making recommendations, and there's obviously some underlying data that's allowing them to do that. I'm just curious to again, probably start with Mo here, but curious to see how companies like Airbnb, potentially Uber, Amazon, etc., are sort of using a lot of the data that they've got from people. And do you think some of these brands that have already got a history of a lot of information are going to be able to maybe provide more effective recommendations to you because they've already got this sort of rich history of information that they can now sort of deploy AI by making other recommendations like this. So, you know, what are your thoughts on the move, and also from a technology perspective, does this, you know, have they got some unique position that other brands may not have in this particular space?
Well, this is a smart move by Airbnb. Look, consumers are spending a bigger share of their wallet on wellness, and they're going to look for these things. One of the more visited pages now with hotel sites, I was recently speaking to an executive of Marriott, is the wellness section, is the gym section, to see what kind of services do you offer in the gym? Do you have a cold plunge? So people are looking for these things. When it comes to technology, companies like Apple and Amazon are literally at the center of our health and wellness. And here's why. Apple, obviously, because of the Apple Watch, Apple Health, and all the integrations that they're doing, Amazon knows so much about you. Let's look at my house, for instance, right? My Amazon account knows what we order. We get 2 to 3 Amazon, probably more, packages a day because my wife and kids will take the boxes before I can see them. So we're getting packages coming all the time. My iRobot, which is owned by Amazon, knows the floor plan of my house, literally, right? So from vacuuming and mopping my floor. We shop at Whole Foods, which is owned by Amazon, and I'm always scanning my Amazon barcode, so they know what I'm buying. We get our prescriptions and supplements from Amazon, so they've got such a complete picture. And by the way, with TV and Amazon Prime, they even know what you're watching, so they could now hyper personalize to you because they know you and give you relevant recommendations so that you click to buy. Airbnb is trying to do some of that now. They understand that wellness is top of mind. And a big reason today why people take a vacation in a very digital, high stress world is to, what do you hear, right? Is to unplug, is to connect with nature. So it's not just to go to a hotel or the destination. A lot of times, the wellness aspect of it is the destination for a lot of people. They're going to a destination to embrace wellness and they're seeking that out. So why not leverage that? And I think as hotels, and there's this good competitive battle happening between hotels and resorts and Airbnb. As hotels and resorts really work to add premium amenities, better gym equipment, better spa facilities, better mattresses, like, you know, darker rooms, soundproofing, and also food and cuisine. Now you're looking at Airbnb, doesn't offer as much, it's not as compelling. So they're really offering something for the consumer because the hotels right now are looking like a better solution.
I love talking to you guys on these things because so many interesting points come up. I think that, you know, really what's happening is it's just about creating more successful experiences for people. Airbnb is tapping into it. I agree, it's a great move, but they're offering these wellness experiences because they want people to have a successful trip, and they understand that more and more consumers are wellness oriented, so they want to be successful. Mo, when you bring up how Amazon knows everything about what you're watching, what you're eating, what you're buying, what you're delivering, all of that type of stuff, you know, it also makes me think just we want a successful day. We want a successful trip. We want a successful, you know, voyage, what have you. And I think a lot about when I go to someplace new, my first day could be a little wonky because you're trying to figure out, where do I get my coffee? Where do I get my workout? Where do I pick up my water? And so I think what's happening here is just that is all becoming so much more streamlined so that you could have a great first day because you're going to show up in a town and know exactly what your like creatures of habit are. And so you don't have to have ever been there before, but it's going to feel like you have everything you need right at your fingertips.
Yeah, it's also interesting that when it comes to these experiences, just to wrap off this story, there's another article on the Airbnb website where there's a lady called Sarah Ali Khan, who's a big Bollywood actress, curates and hosts an exclusive wellness and yoga retreat. So this is this seems to be something where you can unwind with Sarah Ali Khan at a serene Airbnb in Goa, where guests will enjoy a bespoke yoga session guided by the actress itself. So I guess using technology in this way, you could almost see how they can sort of move from some of these destinations where I understand in certain places, certainly in California, it's becoming quite difficult to have an Airbnb now because a lot of the restrictions. You can kind of almost see where they're almost like finding locations and then creating experiences for people to go, almost like a destination where I suppose there's a number of opportunities to sort of capture you outside of just staying at a place for an evening, which is an interesting development. So a company called Supra. So this is an NFL athlete building again somebody who's revolutionizing online training. NFL veteran John Madsen and CEO of Nineveh Madsen, I think that's correct, have created Superhuman. So it seems like this it's a high-end digital fitness platform, and what he's proposing in this is total identity reconstruction. And I think this is a unique positioning because it's almost going beyond a traditional fitness app, and it seems to, like the wording itself, total identity reconstruction. So quite sort of curious in terms of where this is going, and I certainly I guess the terminology that they use, particularly in the press release around about high performance humans, it seems as though now they're bringing in the fitness element clearly, but all the other aspects within their life. So again, probably start with you on this one, Deb, to see if you've heard anything about this Superhuman, and also your sort of thoughts on the direction that some of these I guess sort of fitness apps and coaching, particularly for this one, which seems to be positioned as very high ticket, are now going.
So until you mentioned it, Matt, I was not familiar with Superhuman, but I do love the space. I love the motivation behind and the inspiration behind and the education behind kind of the mindset, high performance culture. I think there's a lot of people out there that are kind of jumping on this. It's still pretty niche, which I think is why it's a high ticket item. I don't know that you could go out and be all things to all people on this. But it brings up even some of the talks at the biohacking conference. Damon John spoke also a very interesting stat, by the way, about how I think we have to fact check this, but I think it's 7 of the other sharks are dyslexic. And some number like 43% of entrepreneurs are dyslexic. And so the rise of AI really helping people with dyslexia. So I could see how a brand like this, Superhuman, and I'm not saying that this is what Superhuman does, I don't know, but helps people kind of really go after what they're looking for, their high performance, their success in business, their overcoming adversity, similar to how Joe DeSena is doing it with all of the races. And I think, when people are really motivated to go after it and also have the instructions and the tips and tricks and how to do it, you have a really great community that's very success oriented and driven. And so I'm seeing a lot of this in different spaces in the market. And personally, I'm extremely motivated by those brands.
Well, I guess, Deborah, because you're not a middle-aged man like I am, but Matthew, I assume that you've gotten these ads, right, from on Instagram or your socials. Have you not seen his ads?
Clearly not.
Okay, that's interesting because
That's good targeting, though. Good targeting.
It's really good targeting because I'm getting it like all the time. So I've seen his ads for, I think, a couple of years, and his whole spiel is you have to be making $150,000 a year to apply. The program costs anywhere from $10,000 to $30,000 a year, so it's not a cheap program. And I think really what they've done is paired you up with really trained, well-trained personal trainers and coaches. That's ultimately what the product is. And there is this air of exclusivity, right? Saying, hey, if you aren't successful, and if you don't want to be a high performer, and so when you look at the ads, it kind of plays into that masculine drive of saying, okay, I want to make a lot of money, but I feel out of shape. I'm ashamed to take my shirt off, and all those things. And he plays that and says, look, you're successful, but you could, but you don't feel confident. And I think it's a good product, but really what it is he's done it. There's nothing revolutionary about it other than he's taken very well paid trainers. If you look at what a personal training package, a 10-pack at Equinox is a month, that's over $1,000 a month that you're going to be spending anyways. He's kind of made that digital and tried to make that more accessible. And I would also say made it more exclusive, but he's done a really good job of marketing and raising brand awareness. But outside of that, there's fundamentally nothing different that he's doing that you can't do anywhere else.
It's exclusionary marketing. Like you say, the ads are very much like, this is where you start. It's in some ways, I guess it's you could, from a marketing perspective, you could say he's making, eliminating a big percentage of his of people that he doesn't want to get, so he gets the right type of people. I think he even watched a little bit of a podcast on it. But on the other side, I suppose in itself, it's a marketing ploy, because it's like you've almost got to qualify to be good enough to join the club almost.
Right. And in reality, for someone to offer to even think about a personal training, if you're making 40,000 a year, you're probably not going to be thinking about a personal trainer. Anyway, so he's speaking to the audience who would be thinking about spending that and making that type of investment, regardless. But yeah, look, I'm glad that he's doing well.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I mean, it's interesting. It's a brand's voice, right? Like that's the voice. To your point, it's all the same stuff. Fitness, it's all the same stuff too, right? It's just how do we attract the right brands, population? Who are the people that are going to come to our call to action? And so it's interesting the way that they're delivering it. It makes me think of this guy that we've come across, I believe, John Sarasani, the 2000% raise. I mean, it's a very provocative type of call to action. And he's very provocative on Instagram, and you either love it or you hate it. And so, it just goes back to, I think this is high performance culture. There are people that want to shift their mindset. They want to achieve more. And then it's finding the right community, whether it's Superhuman or another one, or Equinox, to your point, that will help them get there.
I'm going to jump on to the next story. This is the equipment gear section. This is a pretty interesting one. And it's a budget supermarket, which is called Aldi. And they launched in the UK a Pilates bed a Pilates reformer for £150. And if you read the story, like, people are apparently fighting over each other to get hold of this £150 Pilates reformer. Aldi are this sort of budget chain. I think they're in Germany. They're definitely in the UK, maybe some other markets across Europe. And I suppose it's now making something that was very exclusive and luxury accessible to pretty much anywhere. And as a result, there's clearly a huge demand for people to get hold of this, because they've literally been fighting and swearing at each other in the stores to get hold of these things. So what are your thoughts on this, guys?
Well, I think, first off, there's an Aldi a couple miles away from me, so they will not have
really?
any. Yeah, I don't know if they have them in the
I
West
didn't know they
Coast.
were in America.
I was going to say that too. I just looked it up, Matthew. 109 LDs in California.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and here's a quick side thing, but Aldi is a German brand, right? So
I knew that.
So
yeah.
Aldi, and so is Trader Joe's. Trader Joe's is also a German brand.
Weren't they actually owned by someone like
That's
Aldi
right.
originally?
So really, again, we're going off topic here, but there's an Aldi's North and an Aldi's South in Germany. Aldi's South, when they wanted to come to the US, said, hey, we should go with different brands, became Trader Joe's. Aldi's North kept the Aldi's name and became Aldi. So you never know what you're going to learn on this podcast.
No way.
Yes, that's
and
it.
Trader Joe's is my favorite brand. So if they sold a reformer, I'd probably buy it.
But they would not sell this reformer. And listen, kudos to viral marketing. Clearly speaks the popularity of Pilates. But I went on Reddit and try to get some of the feedback of what people are thinking about, and it's not been great. These things are falling apart. It is based off of resistance bands, which I know is great for working out, but not on a reformer, which typically has a spring-based system on it. And it just looks really flimsy. Like, I don't know how comfortable I would feel being on that. What I'm hoping it doesn't do, it's almost like getting a cheap treadmill off Amazon for $200, and then you're getting injured running from it, and all of a sudden you don't get into running. So the thing I think to caution people on is, if you want to try it, go for it. But if I were someone, I would say try to find a more affordable Pilates alternative, either at your gym or at a class, or frankly, get a ball or some equipment. P-Vault, Debra, a brand you and I have, worked with, has Pilates inspired movements, and there's a lot of other ways to get your Pilates fixed. I just don't think that this is, from a fitness perspective, the right approach towards a mass adaptation of a reformer.
It's very interesting. I could see my mother being like, I was in Aldi's and they have a reformer, and I could see how it could grow and kind of spread through a user group that, to your point, is not really in the fitness market, so doesn't understand the other fitness offerings for a Pilates reformer. but is shopping at Aldi's and is like, oh, I heard Pilates is good because my friends or my neighbor or my whatever goes to Pilates class every day. I should try it. So I could see how it could tap into a market that we're not tapping into. And I think that's why Aldi's made this move, which is kind of cool at face value. But 100% hear your point, Mo, that if consumers are getting on this piece of equipment and not enjoying it, not using it, not feeling good on it, and if it's breaking and all of that, then it just kind of gives Pilates and Pilates reformers the bad name.
I can't imagine what the cost of goods is on that, like prior to shipping. Either it's a marketing ploy where they're just sort of washing it through just to get themselves in the press, which clearly they've done around the globe because of this. I think they did a similar one in Australia. But if it's there to generate a profit like that, that thing's got to be pretty basic at $150. Well, look, I think we're up on time, and we're takeaways really. Mo, what are your? We've covered quite a bit, a little bit more than usual. What are your takeaways from this week?
We did. I just think 2025 is going to be a year to remember for a lot of things. We've talked about some of it today. Biohacking is becoming mainstream. It's no longer this like subculture. It's really becoming mainstream culture, at least in fitness and wellness. And I think, Deborah, to the conferences like you went to, Dave Asprey is a household name, and not because of bulletproof coffee, which is what he founded, but because of his biohacking things that he's doing now. So I'm excited to see what comes out of that and how the broader fitness community either embraces it or does not.
My takeaways is I just love talking about this stuff with you guys. I think it's really inspiring. And yeah, going to the events is really inspiring as well, because you just see all of the people that are, sucking it all up. So I look forward to seeing you all soon at whatever our next event is together, and just watching what the industry is doing. I don't think we have to be consuming or, being a part of every single thing that pops up. People need to pick and choose what makes sense for them for whatever reason they're looking for something, whether it's weight loss or, sleep, like you mentioned, Matthew, or brain acuity. And there's so many different things to choose from. So you can't get lost in paradox of choice, but follow brands that you trust. That's my bottom line.
One of the things I guess I'm starting to, and it's not the first time we've spoken about this, but my sort of circle of my connections within what I would call the space that we're all in is probably relatively small. And you're talking to you, Deborah, this Dave Asprey event, totally new group of people that you, as you said, you knew one or two people, but a whole, thousands of people that you didn't, were totally outside of the traditional area that we tend to sort of, people we rub shoulders with. A number of the businesses that we've gone through today are all in this sort of health and wellness space. Again, business ideas and models that we don't traditionally see at a lot of the events we typically go to in most cases. And I saw this Peter Diamandis thing that I'd been sending to Mo last week, and they're calling this the next $1 trillion industry. And I think certainly as the industry continues to go through a lot of changes, and you can call it disruption, and certain businesses are moving, are definitely being disrupted. But there's all this new stuff that's out there, and I think it's just sort of curious to be able to piece some of these things together and to find out, where the new crowd is hanging out that are talking about some of these things, because clearly there's a lot of thought going into some of this stuff, and I suppose in some ways it really gives me a lot of optimism about the area we're in, the impact it's having, and how many people are looking to get involved. Even people like Aldi or maybe even Trader Joe's.
Yeah, and I just want to say one more thing. It's not completely accurate to say none of our community was there. I actually saw some great friends that I didn't anticipate seeing, colleagues through the years, maybe 8 to 10 or so. I anticipate next year, I mean, we already talked about it, Matthew, we're doing our early bird right now. So, these concentric circles, as you mentioned, they're all going to keep shifting and growing the pie, and the innovation is going to keep seeping in. So that's how I stay motivated. And I know you guys are the exact same way, just by seeing everything that's out there.
Fantastic. Well, that's it. If you've enjoyed this episode, please do us a favor and share it with a couple of people so we can get it out there. If you've got any interesting stories or would even like to join us as a guest, then please contact us through the L.I.F.S page on LinkedIn. And thank you, Deborah, for joining this week's episode. And thanks for listening.
Always a pleasure. Bye, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.